My cousin, he's more handsome than me. He's more successful. He has more money. I didn't think it was a big deal because we've always been close together. But you know what? I'm not the only one that thinks he's more handsome, charming, good-looking, and, well, all the above. Guess who does too? My wife. I'm 29 and male, and I've never thought I'd be the one of those people that just write stuff and share it on the internet. I've always been a lurker and have occasionally commented on some posts, and I'll admit, I did come here for my daily dose of entertainment and drama, but I never imagined being on the other side of it. I can't say it's much fun, but here I am. Maybe this is the karma for my sadistic side that's always satiated by the drama and misery in everyone else's stories. Who knows? Let me bring you all up to speed. This all started maybe 2 months ago. To be honest, I should have probably dealt with it then and there, but I really didn't want to be known as the guy in the family who got a divorce a year into his marriage. Look where that got me, huh? I would have been better off divorced than as an unhappy man as I am now. Anyways, roughly 2 months ago, while my wife Jane was in the shower, I was lazing around in bed. We were still riding the high of honeymoon phase of our marriage, and I wanted her to either come out or let me go in so that we could fool around. She declined both offers. I don't know what it is about the day, but something made me pick her phone up, mostly out of boredom. We've always given each other full access to one another's phones out of trust, but have never actively invaded each other's privacy out of respect. I've used her phone countless times to make or answer calls, take photographs, share documents with myself, or draft messages that she was not in the mood to do, and she's done the same for me. On this fine day, I was scrolling through her gallery out of pure boredom, hoping to find some cute or spicy photos of her that I could send to myself when a notification popped up from someone named George. It was a plain winky smile, but something in my gut told me to investigate further. So I opened the chat to discover that George she was speaking to was none other than my own cousin, who I've been extremely close to my whole life. I was the best man at his wedding, and he and his wife Vanessa joined us every Sunday for brunch. As I scrolled through, and for some reason not deleting the chat, it soon became apparent that Jane and George were having an affair. They were sensual pictures, very sensual, that she had never shared with me. Messages talking about how he pleased her more than I ever have, and how he's so much more handsome, and plans to meet at various hotels during the evenings that she told me she was working late. All of this, of course, was 100% reciprocated by old George. I could not believe what I was reading. It felt like my heart was in my throat, and that two people I trusted the most in my life that were closest to me, how could they do this? I spent the next 10 minutes throwing up in the guest bathroom, and I took as many screenshots as I could, shared them with myself, and then cleared all evidence of me having found the chat. Then I placed her phone where it's been and pretended to be asleep when I heard her preparing to get out of the shower. When she tried to wake me up to initiate intimacy, I declined and told her I felt unwell. That's that. She spent some time on her phone before going to bed, and I spent the night staring at a moonbeam on the floor of our room with my back to her. The next morning, once Jane went to work, I took a day off and contacted a private investigator. I found him online with a ton of good reviews. I explained the situation to him and told him where both Jane and George worked. He helped me gain access to their messages, which was fairly easy since the four of us shared a family plan that I was at the head of, and I monitored their interactions throughout the day. I watched my wife send my cousin lewd images of herself in the bathroom of her office, texting him about how she needed to see him and could not get enough of him. I watched my cousin tell my wife that he wished she wasn't married to me, so the affair did not have to be a secret, while he dismissed his own marriage even, and then they planned to get together that night because they could not just keep their hands off one another and wanted to tear each other's clothes off. I received a message from her letting me know that she had to work late on an urgent project again. She said that she hoped all, the overtime she's put in would make her more appealing for a promotion in her company sometime soon, so she could contribute more and afford a better lifestyle for the both of us. I informed my PI, and while he went off to do his job, I scrolled as far back in George's chat with Jane as I could, trying to figure out when the affair even started. From what I've read, They've been seeing each other since before Jane and I were married. It started during all of our wedding planning, roughly 2 years into George's marriage to Vanessa. It's disgusting. The betrayal was painful, too painful to even realize, really, and the PI contacted me later that night, sharing images and videos of Jane and George kissing in the parking lot of the hotel, getting into an elevator together, holding hands and being intimate. Seeing actual physical proof outside of the messages, well, it broke me. I spent an hour throwing up my dinner before collapsing into bed, hoping to fall asleep before Jane got home. This cycle continued for about a month. I would religiously read through their interactions to inform my PI of where and when he would be able to catch them together, and go through the images he sent me. Each one making me sick to my stomach. Well, I spent my days in absolute misery and fell into depression. I became obsessive. All that went through my head were images of my wife with somebody else. I could barely stand to touch her, much less allow her to touch me or even share a bed. It took everything in me to even have the strength to meet her eyes. It wasn't long before she realized something was off. We had not engaged in any form of intimacy that entire month, and it was very unlike us. I made no attempts to initiate anything and rejected every single one of her advances. She kept asking me what's wrong, but I never admitted that anything was up. I just told her over and over again that I was stressed and having a tough time at work. My friends, family, and also realized that something had changed. I'd lost weight, my eyes seemed to be more sunken in, and my hair started to thin. The mental anguish I was going through deepened my wrinkles every day, and I'd say in about a month I aged about 10 years. Out of spite and desperate to put an end to the affair so we could all move on in peace, I bought a burner phone. Through it, I would anonymously send Jane and George proof of their affair. Screenshots of their chats and pictures of them together, and I hoped this would make them anxious enough about being found out that they would stop meeting completely and end the affair. And my marriage, which was once full of passion, love, and innocence, would go back to what it used to be. I did this every day for a month. Every morning, I would wish them a good morning and send them one image, just one. Then I would turn the phone off and resume my daily routine. When I put the phone on the next day, I would be bombarded with missed calls and messages asking me who I was, what I wanted, and how I'd gain access to the images I would share. I would only respond with another image of the affair. As the days went by, I noticed a change in Jane's demeanor as well. She seemed stressed out, more worried and wary. Sometimes she would eye me suspiciously, but I did my best to never give them anything. Her late nights in the office reduced drastically, and I asked her what happened to her project, and she said it ended. I then asked her why she seemed so stressed, and she just brushed me off. She became rude, cold, closed off. Our bedroom life was pretty much dead. The text between Jane and George also changed in tone. It went from dirty, naughty messages to discussions about who the anonymous texter was, whether it could be me or Vanessa, where they were getting their images from, and how Jane and George could just work around it. Well, it turned into them blaming one another for not being careful enough, for not covering up well, for getting too cocky and slipping up, and so much more. The messages quickly became bitter and demeaning, and it wasn't long before they stopped altogether. It seemed as though the affair ended, and a weight was lifted off my shoulder. It looked like a month of worry, stress, and anxiety was all it took for them to give each other up. After I believed the affair had ended, I discontinued my contract with my PI and stopped checking their messages quite often. Nothing had been shared between them in weeks, and I was so relieved. I knew that it wasn't the smartest idea to continue a marriage with a cheater, though, but I just didn't have it in me to end it. I loved her, my family loved her, and it felt shameful to file divorce in just a year. Today, however, he pushed me right over the edge. Well, it's been about 2 weeks since everything was concluded, and my wife went out for drinks with her girlfriends. I was ready to blindly trust her once more until I went through her work bag in search of a pen and instead found a burner phone. Well, I was confused. What did she have a burner phone for? Did she find the one I was using to message her and George? Panicking, I turned it on only to discover that it was being used to communicate continuously with George. Apparently, the affair never actually ended. The messages talked about how they had outsmarted their anonymous blackmailer and how they could not have lived without each other and nothing would drive them apart. From the messages, I gathered that they have now started meeting during the midday lunch break instead of after work. They've also been putting a lot more effort into covering their tracks and watching their back. They mention always keeping their burners on hand and never out of sight for fear of being caught again. I guess my wife slipped up. I'm at my wit's end and my heart is just so broken. I love her so much, I do. I was ready to give her the world, but apparently that's not enough. It's never enough. I'm not asking for advice on how to stop the affair, I'm now beyond that. Even though I was forced to learn the hard way, I know my only option is divorce. And with the proof I've collected, I'm sure I'll receive a hefty alimony. What I want help with is how best to seek revenge on Jane and George, and after everything they've put me through over the last 2 months with the affair, I would rather die than let them off the hook so easily. Any ideas, folks? What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. I hope you guys are having a great day. It's not over yet. There's so many updates on this affair, and a couple of these updates are going to absolutely throw you for a loop. If you guys want daily videos on Mr. Reddito's YouTube channel, all you have to do is subscribe to the channel for daily animated videos. Let's go ahead and jump straight into update number 1. Hey everyone, just wanted to check in and give you guys a quick update. I don't really want to be the one that confronts George and Jane because I'm sure that I'll break down in the process. This whole situation's been very, very difficult for me to deal with mentally, especially since I have nobody to talk to about it. Nobody knows yet. And I'm continuing to hide the fact that I'm privy to the affair from my wife. Recently, she planned an entire weekend outing for the two of us, because of how down I've just been over the last few months. She rented a cottage by the beach for us, which is something we've always loved doing together, and whisked me away on a Friday afternoon. Being stuck alone in a cottage with her continuously for over 48 hours was harder than I imagined. She made countless romantic plans and did her best to maintain physical touch with me as much as she could. The effort she put into the weekend almost had me reconsider my plans because for a moment, it felt like she genuinely loved me. However, the cruel words shared between her and George about me and how I was inferior to my own cousin just rang in the back of my head the entire time. Jane planned a romantic candlelit dinner for the two of us, a moonlit walk on the beach, stargazing and more, but I could not stop myself from being a little cold the entire time. As we ended our night, she tried to initiate intimacy, but as usual I declined. She began to cry, asking me if she's done something wrong and if she wasn't good enough for me anymore, if she wasn't able to keep me happy. Oh, the irony of the situation almost made me laugh out loud. She pointed out how strained and dry things have been between us, and how she planned this getaway just to try to reignite some sort of spark between us, but all while she was trying her best, I was putting in absolutely no effort. Seeing her cry made me finally relent. I gave in to her advances, but it wasn't the same as it used to be. It felt clumsy, awkward, and like being with a stranger. To a certain degree, she was a stranger. I no longer recognized the woman I shared a bed with, and she was not the same person I dated for most of my adult life. She was not the same person I married and shared my ups and downs with, and she was not the same person I fell head over heels for. That was the night that I realized I no longer loved my wife. Update number 2. After I came to the realization I shared with you all last time, I realized that I was ready to move forward with my plan sooner than I anticipated. I think a part of me was trying to draw out the time I left with my wife as much as I could, because I knew that once her affair with George came to light and I left her, as any self-respecting man would, I would never get the chance to come to her again at home, sleep beside her, or watch her nose crinkle as she yawned in the morning. Over the weekend, the things that I loved and cherished and wanted to remember were things that I felt numb toward. Waking up beside her did not leave me full of joy and love as it used to. Instead, I felt nothing. So 2 weeks after the getaway, which is today, I've decided that it's time to move forward with the plan. Tomorrow, Vanessa and George are hosting a get-together for their son's second birthday. I still can't wrap my head around the fact that Jane chose to home-wreck a marriage that involves such a young child. Vanessa has this huge barbecue planned, and she's invited over the entire family. Everyone connected to George and I are going to be there. While I still don't have the courage to confront George and Jane while simultaneously maintaining my composure, I know that Vanessa is a strong woman who will not hesitate. I also know that if Vanessa finds out that, I knew about the affair for months and chose to keep it a secret, she will lose her head at me. And that's something I'm not looking forward to. So, I've chose to take the coward route. And I will admit that it is massively cowardly, but I don't see any other option at the moment. I know a lot of people will disagree with my choice and tell me to man up. But at the end of the day, this is my life and the decision is ultimately up to me. Tonight I've used the same burner phone I previously used to scare Jane and George to text all the evidence of the affair I had to Vanessa. She immediately bombarded me with questions asking me who I was, where I'd found the screenshots and images. I told her that while I was not comfortable revealing my identity, I was somebody close and had discovered the affair and thought that she deserved to know. I also told her that the screenshots came from George and Jane's phone themselves and the photographs from an investigator. I wished her the best, and after backing up the proof for what I've done to take to Jane to court, I turned off the burner and disposed of it. Tonight's probably the last time I share a bed with my wife, who's blissfully asleep beside me and completely unaware. I don't know what tomorrow will hold, and I don't know if I'm prepared for it, but one thing is for certain, 2 marriages will most definitely be destroyed during the barbecue, and a lot of attention will be on me. It's going to be one hell of a night, and at the very least, I hope that there's no violence. After the hell that Jane and George have put me through with my mental and physical health spiraling over the last few months, the last thing I want is to give them the satisfaction of seeing my vulnerability or showing them aggression that allows them to build a counter case against me. Update number 3. I'm sure you guys expected an update soon after the party was over, right? And I'm here to deliver. Tonight definitely did not go the way that I expected, and I'm still pumped up with adrenaline from all of it. I'm typing this from my bedroom where I'm sitting alone. That's right. After tonight's drama, Jane did not have the courage to show up to our house, and I'm happy. I don't think I'm ready to witness any begging, crying, or reasoning. No, just yet. Being here alone makes me feel like I'm going to get my first good night of proper sleep that I've not had in months. The lack of Jane's presence makes the atmosphere feel light and more relaxed, and seeing the bed so empty gives me such peace of mind. I didn't realize how much even just her presence was weighing on me. Oh, until now when she's gone. It's just amplifying for me how much my love for her has completely vanished, and I feel nothing for that monster of a woman and can't imagine having her in my home ever again. Anywho, on to what you guys have been waiting for. The party started out smooth enough, and Jane and I came in with a tray of baked potatoes, fresh from the oven. George was manning the barbecue in the backyard, and Vanessa welcomed us with a mojito and a cold beer. We placed our gift alongside the rest by the front door, but before following Vanessa into the backyard, the adults mingled around on their lawn. While their pool was full of children, both family and friends, the entire time that Vanessa guided us into the house, she kept glancing at me with curious eyes, probably wondering if I sent her the messages or if I knew about the affair. I pretended not to notice and moved on to greet my relatives, some of whom I have not seen since my wedding. From the corner of my eye, I watched Jane run up to George and greet him with a big ol' hug and a kiss on the cheek. Ugh. This never seemed abnormal to me before because the 4 of us were close, and she never really bonded with anyone else from the family the way she did with George and Vanessa. Seeing it now, I noticed the lingering touches, the intense eye contact. It was obvious that I felt blind. I turned to glance at Vanessa and noticed her fist clenching and her eyes welling up slightly. I reminded myself that she had not as much time to process the affair as I did. And well, nor had she had the time to lose the love that I've lost. I felt guilty for blindsiding Vanessa, but the throbbing pain of betrayal in my gut after witnessing George and Jane interact in person for the first time since I found out about the affair was enough for me to know that I would not have addressed it with a calm mind. The party progressed really well, and soon the children were out at the pool and headed indoors to clean up and dry off. This was the moment Vanessa chose. The fun music blasting over the speakers stopped, and Vanessa picked up a microphone that I had not even noticed before. A projector screen rolled down the side of the house. "I have an announcement to make," she said, with her eyes looking at mine, and I could tell that she immediately realized I already knew. I looked around in search of Jane and found her at the grill with George, who had his arms around her under the pretext of trying to teach her how to flip a burger on the grill. I couldn't believe that they had the audacity to do it in Vanessa's home, surrounded by friends and family and in front of all of our faces. I guess that's how overconfident and secure they've gotten and the secrecy of their affair. So, Vanessa waited till they stopped and looked at her curiously. I could just tell that George had no idea what the heck was going on. Vanessa approached them slowly as the screen behind her came to life. "As you all know, our son completed 2 years today." The crowd jumped with cheer. Their son was the first grandson of the family, and after all, this is what they say next. "George and I have completed 4 years of marriage." There was more hollering as Vanessa came to a stop, directly before Jane and George, and Jane tried to step aside to avoid disrupting a family moment, but Vanessa placed a firm hand on her arm, forcing her to stay in place. This was when I decided to make my move and come stand behind Vanessa. She turned to look at me and raised an eyebrow as to ask if I knew. I nodded in confirmation, and she continued. Jane looked at us in confusion before she began to process what's happening. "But did you also know that George has been cheating on me for almost half of our marriage and almost our son's entire life?" There was audible gasp in the crowd as they grew more shocked as the photographs came to life right there on the screen. Images of Jane and George kissing, images of them half naked on a motel bed, images of them hitting third base in a car, of them holding hands, of them undressing one another. I winced as they showed up on the big screen one after another, and I'd seen them before, but I've always just looked at them briefly and never in this much high-definition detail. It felt like somebody just grabbed my heart and was squeezing the blood out of it. "Did you also know," Vanessa continued, "that our lovely Lady Jane here has been cheating on Ethan for the entirety of their marriage with my husband?" I turned to look at Jane and George, and Jane was red and sobbing in embarrassment. She tried to reach a hand towards me, but I moved away. George, on the other hand, was expressionless. He simply stared at the screen, which had now started displaying screenshots of their convo, including the lewd images that they exchanged and crude comments about their marriage. Vanessa continued, "Do you have anything to say for yourself? How could you betray your family for a woman? We have a son together. If you wanted to leave, nobody would have stopped you. What kind of sick jerk puts a mother through something like that?" George's face remained blank as he stared at the images. "How long have you known?" he asked her. "One night. But it's been more than enough. I want a divorce, and I want you and your little girl to get out of my house now."
Those were the images used to scare us,"
George mumbled. He turned to Jane, whose eyes had been on me the entire time, through her eyes and her tears and snot, and as soon as he said that, her crying stopped. "What?" Vanessa asked. Jane repeated his words. "Those are the images that were used to scare us." Vanessa looked at them in confusion. "Is that really your biggest concern right now? I don't know what you're talking about. I just received them last night." Jane didn't let Vanessa finish what she was saying and proceeded to launch herself at her. "You put us through hell, you witch." Vanessa, who was clearly much, much stronger, well, more stronger than the two, pushed Jane back as hard as she could, resulting in Jane slamming against the grill. Her hair simmering in the coal, you could smell it in the air. "And what do you think you and George have done to us, you homewrecker? Look at that irony." The only hell you went through was clear and fear of being caught. Well, chaos ensued as it became apparent that Jane's hair had caught on fire and nobody knew how to help her. George immediately picked her up and doused her in the pool where the flames finally went out. Once the situation calmed down, I almost erupted in laughter. Jane looked like a bald chicken. There were only patches of her once long, luxurious mane left, and Vanessa looked at me and giggled, but we maintained our composure. As George wrapped a towel around Jane, I stepped forward to them. I think it's best if they, both of you leave. It's clear that you're no longer welcome here. Jane looked at me and started to plead.
Ethan, I can explain. It's not what it looks like in the photos.
Get out and don't show up at my house tonight. Send one of your brothers to pick up your crap. George helped Jane stand and together they left, exhausted and not wanting to deal with the pity in the eyes of the people that remained. I told Vanessa I'd be heading out and that we could catch up soon. She agreed and wished me well. So I came home, I showered, and now here I am, drained, but happy to have gotten the affair out there in the open. Update number 4, a final wrap-up. Hey guys, it's been a few months since I last shared my story with you guys. There's not much to tell, honestly. This is as happy as an ending can be, as Vanessa and I could have gotten. Both of us are divorced, and Vanessa received a hefty alimony. She also won ownership of the house and full custody of their son, while George is obligated to pay a fair chunk of his salary as child support every single month. Jane's now completely bald and has gone off the grid out of shame. Her looks were always something she prided herself on, and with her hair gone, she lost all the self-esteem and confidence that she normally paraded around with. She even resigned from her job because she could not bear stepping into the office with the way that she looked. During our divorce proceedings, she tried to milk me for as much as she could. But with the proof of infidelity and the prenup we signed, I got to keep the house. Both the cars. Since I originally purchased one for her anyways. And most importantly, our dog. Vanessa and I have been one another's support system through all this, and I confess that I've sent her the proof and that I'd previously tried to scare them straight with it. She was upset at first, but ultimately she understood that I may not have been able to contain my anger. And who knows how much worse the situation might have gotten if I handled it. Jane and George were no longer together, though. They kept blaming one another for the divorce and eventually went their separate ways. George is now renting a small apartment somewhere in town, hoping to get visitation rights to his boy, while Jane is simply and thankfully up and vanished. All's well that ends well. The comment section on this story was very unique because, believe it or not, some people were actually mad at OP for stringing along his cousin's wife. And we know that he did do that, but was that such a big deal? Because he even said at the end of the story, if he would have handled it, it might not have been so successful of a handling because he thought that he was going to get violent. I just want to know from you guys, do you think by not telling Vanessa for a month, that was the worst thing he could have done? I want to know if you would have done the same or you would have done it differently. So go ahead in the comment section. Let's discuss it. Let's talk about what you would have done if you find out your wife is cheating on you with your cousin and you have all the evidence. What exactly do you do? My name's Mr. Reddito, and I narrate stories like this every day. So if you want to be a part of these daily readings, you know what to do. Smash that subscribe button. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And just remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.